Well, welcome to See Hear Love. It's our summer series, and we're featuring never-before-seen interviews and all of your favorite shows from our past seasons. So we hope you enjoy our past conversations that are still very important and inspiring today. Enjoy.
You are seen, you are heard, you are loved by God. You're not alone, you're fully known, you are loved by God.
Well, welcome to See Hear Love. I'm your host, Melinda, and thanks for joining us online, on TV, on our podcast, and radio all across the world. And thank you, lovely ladies on the couch, for joining today. Cheryl, Brooke, Lisa, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you look all cozy on the couch.
Yeah, these ladies are gorgeous.
I know. This is going to be a great day.
I love it.
That's great. And we have a special guest, Christina Crook. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Christina is a speaker, a TEDx speaker, and a writer, and the author of The Joy of Missing Out, Finding Balance in a Wired World. Can you actually do that, finding balance?
We're gonna find out.
Well, Christina's here to talk to us about that behind every curated picture is a big old messy life. And I'm excited to talk about that. Maybe excited, and I'm gonna be convicted as well, I know, because I love my social media and my posting pictures on Insta, so I think it's gonna be great. But you wrote this book, Christina, The Joy of Missing Out. How did that happen? What was sort of the impetus and start of this, and how did that work itself out? How did you feel when you did that?
Okay, so I took a fast from the internet for 31 days. This was a couple of years ago.
Wow.
So 31 days of not having Google Maps, not obviously having social media, not having email, literally not being connected to the internet in any way.
Wow.
And I wanted to figure out if a person could actually live, if a person could live and maybe even live well without without the demands of sort of the everyday ins and outs of the internet. So yeah, and one of the reasons why I did do that experiment was because I had actually moved the previous year from Vancouver to Toronto, and sort of in one fell swoop, all of my relationships, or like 90% of my relationships, were somehow mediated in some way through the internet, whether it was using my cell phone or it was checking in with people on Facebook. And what I found was very quickly my relationships, or me staying connected, again air quoting here, to my friends and family had kind of deteriorated to just sort of checking in on social media to see how people were doing. But really, I knew that was a very small sliver of what was really happening in their lives. And so I wanted to take away that sort of crutch, if you will, to just sort of, I feel connected, but I'm not truly connected, to take, kind of remove that and say, you know, what is this going to force me to do? So yeah, that's sort of where it began.
So how did that go? Like, were you getting like the sweats, like anxiety and palpitations?
I have them right now.
Yeah, I know
thinking about it.
I'm like,
Wow, I am shaking over here.
see how we're all like this? We're like, oh my God, 31 days?
It's like a couple days of withdrawal. And
Oh, yeah, what
that's a real
happened?
thing,
I
eh?
mean, it was, and most people today have their phone with them literally 24 hours a day. We don't spend more time with a single person or item than we do with a
So
smartphone.
true.
And so inevitably the first couple of days, and this was already a few years ago, so I mean, we're using them even more today than we were, you know, a few years ago, but the first couple of days were really like a detox. And because I am a writer, I like perfection with words, and I'd set up a blog about the experiment, and sort of day one, I was obsessing about this sentence that I could not change on the internet. And it was like the first wake-up call of like this profound sense of control we feel on the internet, because we are able to control those words. We can edit, but when we're in the real world, we have no control over, we can't edit back that statement that we said to our neighbor when we're feeling kind of grumpy one morning. We aren't able to edit and pull those things back. And so the first couple of days were really sort of the beginning of the detox, but we can kind of get into where it settled into. Yeah.
That's good. Now, you're responding on the couch like, whoa, I need to hear some thoughts here, because all of you are like, what? How could she have ever done that? Why is that bringing up a bit of like,
I think the world we live in is like, social media is important to a certain extent, but it's taken over our lives. You know, people sit on their phones for hours and scroll and compare, and all the feelings that like steal our joy. And so I kudos to you. That's amazing that you did that.
Yeah. Shara, what about you?
Well, you know, God called me on a 45-day fast, water and air. Don't call me on a 45-minute social media fast. I won't make it. I just won't make it. I'm listening to what you're saying, and it's hitting me so hard, and I realize you said something, and it needs echoing again. We can edit so much out there to present, but we can't edit our lives. And I think that we are now making that our reality, and this is sort of like the quick visit into real life, because we can you know, fluff and touch and fix, and I think we're having a hard time just being authentically broken and messy and full of flaws. This is amazing.
Yes, it is.
Ouch, but
It's good. Lisa.
I'm hearing a couple of things, because what Brooke was sharing was about the fast-pacedness of the world. And honestly, if you're in business, if you're in ministry and you're not connected, there's an entire demographic out there. This is how you connect with them. It's one of the tools that you use. And then we hear from Cheryl how there's a facade that comes with that. And so my response to what Brooke was saying is that these are all tools that God has given us. It's a great tool for this day and age, but what has happened is that the tool has mastered us.
That's right.
And it's got to be the other way around. And when I hear what you're saying, I got to tell you, I don't trust anybody who's just got a filtered life. Like, I'm like, there's got to be more. And if you're not going to show that to me, I'm suspicious of you. You're like, you're not a real human.
A lot of people might feel the same way that you do, Lisa. Christina, when you were doing this experiment, there was a sense of this, and what we're saying is this sort of compartmentalizing of our lives, why we choose to show people only the good. Let's talk about that, because I'm guilty. Like, I filter, I've got Hollywood lighting background, like that's how it is. It's a brand, it's, you know, the show even. And so I'm wanting to learn from you, but like, how do you navigate that? You know, because I don't want to be a person that compartmentalizes, but I also, you know, I want to show good pictures on Instagram, right?
You want to be presentable.
Yeah.
I think, oh man, so many things. I think one is sort of maybe first starting the conversation about motives. Like, what is really our true motivation? What is motivating, constantly needing even to put stuff out into the world? I like to joke that I am the slowest writer of all time. Like, I just am not a content machine. I'm just actually not. And I've wrestled with that because I've missed out on certain opportunities because I'm not constantly putting stuff out into the world. But that's actually not who I am, and I lose out on certain opportunities maybe because of that. But my motive to just constantly produce and throw stuff out online would be not true to the motive of me as a creator and who I believe what I'm called to offer to the world as a child of God. And so I think really asking ourselves what our motives is a big one. If our motive is love, if our motive is that we have a message to share and that what we're doing in the world, we want to inspire people and we want to see them thrive in their own lives, like that can be a beautiful, pure motivation. But I think, you know, asking ourselves some of those harder questions can kind of help us frame it. I also, so we can just stop there. Maybe you have another question.
Motive. What do you think about that? The motive behind what we do on social media.
you know, she's preaching hard. I want to get can I get an offering plate? Can we, cue the choir. Because for me, I had to make a decision about a year and a bit ago. What is my motive? And I decided that I was going to, and I think this is where there's this sort of nice pocket we can sit in, where we use social media as a tool for empowerment, for change, to uplift, rather than this self-glorification. So I decided to just be one that encourages and uplifts and wisdom quotes and just like, you are amazing. Do you know who you are, your identity in God? And then I felt more that it was an extension of my ministry rather than like, look at me. Motive is huge. It's good.
Brooke, what about you?
Really good.
Yeah, I mean, I use social media all the time. And there's a fine balance of like, I don't consider myself to be a narcissist, and I don't ever hope to come across like that on social media. And I'm always just trying to, what motivates you obviously is a huge factor, but just I think there's that balance of trying to share what God is doing in your life and not, hey, look at me, I hope you're all jealous. Right?
Because that's the problem. You know, we're here with young people. They're comparing lives, and it's not real.
Yes.
Like when you look at some of the lives of people on Instagram, oh my goodness, every one of us could be jealous and depressed for the rest of our lives because everybody has this amazing life. right? Travel, clothes, fashion, family,
Yeah.
food, like, and we're bombarded by it, and it has to be taking a toll on people, right? It has
Absolutely.
to be taking
Yeah.
a toll on people, and what they believe and who they believe they are, and the comparison must be a big challenge. Is that something that you were free from when you actually took this experiment?
Oh man, well, I mean, yeah, I was, in terms of you can only compare yourself to like the lady in this house coat across the street and like the people at the coffee, right? Like,
Normal
it's like
people.
normal people, like people in the world, like life, pre 19 whatever, like 1998, I don't know, right? It's like we actually have lived for most of history without this kind of unprecedented
Imagine that.
I always
comparison.
just think of like our
imagine.
moms. Like our moms got through life raising children and making food without Pinterest and like all. I always think, how did you
Multinational
guys do
corporations
it? But
ran
you did it,
without,
and you're
right?
doing
Yeah.
well. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would be different if it was just one country that had internet or one community, but because the whole world is connected now, that ups the game for people to get involved in global village and all that stuff. And going back to the motive thing, it gets hard because sometimes I think you don't know your true motives, and we convince ourselves, we kind of try to justify, well, I'm going to put this up so I can show people I'm on this mission trip and inspire people, but then the deeper motive, that's where maturity comes in, and that's where the older generations that maybe didn't have this social media can really reach down and say, listen, let's do the hard thing first before you go out there and just,
Yeah.
And we need enough space to actually be known to ourselves,
Yeah.
because these tools are actually making us unknown to ourselves. We need enough we have to be not presenting. We have to be not connected. We have to be with ourselves in solitude to really know ourselves and to know God. And so it requires a huge amount of discipline, because every single app you are using is designed to addict you. Like, let's just call it what it is. Like, it is by design, it is tapping into human vulnerability, real-time updates, all of those things are there to keep you on those apps for as long as possible, because it's just dollars. The longer you watch our content, the more ads you're gonna see, the more ad dollars we see. Like, it's just, right, it's built into it. So it's literally a Goliath, like it's a Goliath story, right? Where we're up against Goliath, so we gotta like knock them down, right, daily, weekly, Sabbath, these things, to be known to ourselves,
That's
so that we
beautiful.
know our motives, right?
Yeah.
we can master
Yeah.
this tool. Absolutely.
I really like that. I mean, there's so many things. You're talking about motive. I also underlying too, Christina, is truth. Like the big thing here for the show and for me is to be a truth teller. And in that, there's a truth element, because what we're presenting out here is not necessarily truth. And I think we need to get back to that as people who say we follow truth, we follow the truth, we are about truth. How do we, as these women, be truth tellers on social media in this digital world? What would you say? Because I'm getting motive, and that's a check in me. Because sometimes I do post something to say, hey, look at my great life. I'll be honest. Look at the great life that God has blessed me with.
Hashtag blessed.
Yeah, blessed.
Right.
Second, I think to be a truth teller, sometimes it's not always the truth. There have been moments where I've had a really bad year, but I never wanted anybody to know it, so I just put out really amazing things and just picked the best things. It wasn't a true picture of my life. Talk to us just about that, just in being a truth teller on social media.
Okay. So we talked about this earlier. There's an idea that I like to share, which is that the pictures are pretty, but the struggle is real. And it always comes back to Kanye West and Kim Kardashian for me. I don't know why, but every time I see their lives, I'm like, but you gotta know that behind that photo, there are like 18 staff and 3 screaming children, or however many children they have now, and like just all the ugliness. Like, let's just be honest, behind those photos, to make that thing beautiful, there's a lot of sacrifice and other things happening here.
Yeah.
And that's not to harsh on them, that's just like reality. So the reality is, before we looked as incredible as we do right now, right? We woke up this morning, I woke up wearing my husband's like crappy t-shirt. My house
I was
is like,
prehistoric a couple hours ago.
like,
Major evolution.
Yeah.
that's
thank you. My house, we're moving right now. My house is upside down. Like, look at this. This is beautiful. Like, this set is beautiful. We're all beautiful. Like, and it's good to celebrate beauty. But the reality is like the real stuff, very few people are seeing. And I think what I would say is each time you come to social media, just know that to be true. Like look at it, enjoy it, but just know that to be true.
Yeah.
Can I just add something? I just really feel in my heart to say this. I feel like you said design and something flipped on for me. So there's this sort of worldly design to market and suck in with the apps, but there's a spiritual design here.
Right.
There's an agenda at play, and I feel like we need to kind of talk about that for a second. The enemy's plan is that we lose ourselves and we misconstrued our identity. There's a blurring of the lines here. I'm thinking about, I work with a lot of youth, and I was in a setting with, I had them over at my house, just filled the house. I literally saw one of these young girls really quickly post something. We were there for a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours, go back and check. She didn't have enough likes, and she deleted the post. There's a blurring. They think literally friends online are friends. Followers online and likes are true likes and appreciation. And that is the lie that the enemy wants to mess with their self-worth, that it's tied to the likes and the follows and the reposts. And so you're right, they're not doing the self-work. They're not even beginning to find out they have a creator and they're made for a purpose, made for a greater plan, made for more. Yeah, this is what the enemy wants.
I know.
Yeah.
It's good. And I think so those checks, Christina, of like motive, like when you go in, like check your motive. You know, are you being, you know, like a truth teller? And I think this whole compartmentalizing, like, you know, behind every picture, you know, there is a messy life. And this whole compartmentalizing isn't healthy because, I mean, look at all the stuff you'd have to manage, like the managing of a life that's not the full picture. It's like in this group, I'm here, I'm this, and in this setting, I'm this. Imagine, that's exhausting.
So exhausting.
Yeah. So was it a good experiment?
Oh my goodness, it was so freeing.
Yeah. Would you do it again?
I would.
Yeah.
I would in a heartbeat. Yeah.
31 days.
31 days.
Everybody's avoiding
Why
my
are
eyes.
you looking
I'm
at
like,
me?
31 days, no internet.
Okay, so my husband just went. So my husband and I travel a lot, and he went to Walmart 2 nights ago, and he bought a flip phone.
Sorry, a what?
Yeah,
High five him. I'm high-fiving.
like a flip phone. And he came home with it. He was so excited, and he's like, "I bought this because like." When we're home together, like I want to have FaceTime with you, but like the phone gets in the way. It just does.
Yeah.
We could sit on the couch. We're all guilty of this.
Yes.
Sitting on the couch with our spouse or our friends and just scrolling. And you lose that like actual
lose it.
physical connection.
That's so
And so
funny,
like, yeah, anyways, it's just
There
so
are
funny.
viewers who don't know what a flip phone
Yeah,
is.
they're like, what is that? It's like a Walkman and other such
What's a Walkman? Yeah.
That's so good. Thank you for your thoughts. Here's the thing. You know, we've talked a lot about motivation, truth telling, all that. But I think what's really important is to kind of get back to scripture and truth of what anchors us in this conversation. And so what I want to do now is go to the good word with Joanna. And she's going to share from the Bible this scripture, John 8:31 to 32, about truth. And when we come back, we're going to discuss it afterwards.
John 8, verse 31 and 32 says, "To the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, 'If you hold to my teaching, you really are my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.'" Have you ever been in a room with someone who is really lacking self-awareness? They don't seem to know the truth about themselves. Maybe they have something in their teeth, or their shirt's buttoned wrong, or they're talking really loudly in a quiet space and everybody seems to know except them. When you don't know the truth about yourself, it's really awkward. The reality is we want to know true things about ourselves because none of us want to walk around with real or metaphorical stuff stuck in our teeth that everybody else can see. So Jesus, when he talks about what the truth is, he says it in the next few verses. The truth is that we're slaves to sin, that there are things in our lives that are broken and we need help. You know, there's things in our life that we do wrong or that are unhealthy, and we don't seem to know how to fix them. We don't seem to know how to break out of those habits. That's our sin. And then there's stuff that is good things that we wish we were doing and we want to do, but we try and we fail, and we try and we fail. We have all these good intentions, but we don't often do them. And that's this idea of the sin life that we're slave to. But Jesus says when we accept him, when we become followers of him, believers in him, in Jesus as the Son of God, that we become adopted into the family of God. We actually become sons and daughters of the King. And this is the kind of freedom, the kind of true freedom that sets us absolutely free. And so we can have great courage to follow after Jesus in this kind of life, fully aware of the beauty and the brokenness of our circumstances. And yet, with Jesus who loved us, making a way of salvation, making a way for all of our sins, freedom from our sin, we actually can, in full confidence, in great courage, follow after him as disciples wherever he asks us to go next.
Well, Joanna, thank you so much for that good word in John 8:31 to 32. What are your initial thoughts about that as it relates to our topic on social media? Brooke?
Yeah, and I think about the truth will set you free. What is the truth? The truth is like in the Word of God. The Bible says that you're greatly and deeply loved by the Father. He says He's chose you, He's for you, He's not against you. You are a child of God. That's the truth. And if you can know that and live that, I think that would change your life and the way that you respond to things like social media.
Yeah. Christina, what about that? The truth will set you free. That was a verse that you brought. You said this is a verse that really resonates in my life experience.
I think that Jesus was always trying to remove barriers to the truth. Like when he was actually like walking around with his buds on the earth, like he was always trying to remove barriers between him and others, right? He went to places he wasn't supposed to go. He was dining with people he was not supposed to dine with. And the truth was for all people. And I think when I think about social media, and I think about this conversation around truth, I think about wanting to remove barriers to the truth. So if, again, I'm going on social media because I want to project something that's not entirely true, maybe that's not actually true to what's happening in my life right now, what I want to post, it would make me feel really good. Like truly, it would make me feel really good to post that picture to Instagram because I'm feeling not so good right now, but that's not actually the truth of what's happening in my life right now. So I think that really helps me anchor this conversation.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Cheryl.
That's great.
Truth is a sword. Truth is a sword that breaks the chains of insecurity and vanity and wrong perception and idolatry. And I just think truth is a chain breaker that we need to have in our lives.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I love that. It's like the truth will set you free. You know, when you're confronted in front of Jesus and you look at his life, oh my goodness. So many people didn't like him because you're right, he was breaking barriers. He was speaking for people and against injustice and even against, you know, the church and the way that they were doing things in a way. He was saying, you know, actually there's new commands and there's a new way of living. And it's my way. It's the life that, you know, here I'm showing you how to live and to love. Follow me. And so, you know, when you look at that, I think for me, and this is a really good learning, I think in everything that I do, and not just social media, but life and speaking and the way I relate to people, how does that measure up against the way Jesus lives and loves? And that could be kind of like the measure on how I do life, and not just social media, but in everything. You know, and I think we've talked about this responsibility of being women as leaders and out front and on TV, and it's a great responsibility. And of anybody, we need to be those people of truth.
That's right.
Right? Any other thoughts on that, on the verse, on the truth will set you free? Jesus as the example and trying to live our best authentic life.
Well, we were just talking about those relationships that we have with people and how when you disconnected, it was like you realized because there was something wrong with your relationships, it was just checking in and it wasn't authentic. I think that's what happens because the command is, you know, to love God, love your neighbor. But when we project this image that's a lie about us, I think the relationships are threatened. And then you have to maintain, like you said, all these images that you kind of project out, that you have to maintain that you're a perfect, you know, see here, love host, you're a perfect worship leader. You have to, and it's just like it bogs you down and it'll eventually break you. It'll eventually break you.
I think that's so powerful. I think that's really true.
Well, I think if social media has become life and life has become social media and the lines are blurring, then the filter that we need for this conversation is truth. Put on the filter of truth. When you put on the filter of truth, you will see yourself as God sees you, as you truly are. You'll see friends for who they are. The scales will fall. Just walk in truth. Take truth and put it on, and see what happens. If you're like, well, what is the truth of this moment? What is the real truth of what I'm seeing right now? And it'll be very different than what you think.
You know, it's a good reminder, Cheryl, because I remember the first time when I was speaking publicly and I shared some very deep personal things, and I was terrified. I was literally shaking. I was all emotional, and I was like, I'm going to be judged. People aren't going to like me. I'm never going to be able to speak again. And I remember after that moment, and this was, you know, many years ago, I had many women, men, and teenagers come up to me and say, finally, I am not alone. Finally, I can say, okay, you know what? Somebody has gone before me. Somebody knows what I'm going through.
I can trust
That
a
was the
broken
moment.
life.
Yes.
Because I'm broken, I can trust a broken life.
Yeah, that's the moment I realized I need to, remember that as I
Yeah.
live my life. So thank you so much. That's so good. Great thoughts. And one of the things that I love about our expert coming up, Colleen Blake Miller, she's going to talk to us about how to avoid FOMO, the fear of missing out, because I know that's a big issue on social media too. Take a look.
FOMO is oh so real. So it's important to recognize that many studies have demonstrated how overuse of social media and peering into the lives of other people actually negatively impacts on our mental health. So how do we avoid FOMO? Number one, please remember that things aren't always as they appear on a post. Number two, it is impossible to be at everything and be included in everything. Number three, unplugging and giving yourself permission to miss out is actually quite empowering. So go and refocus your attention on what matters the most. Go connect with real people. Remember what I always say, amazing lives inside of you. So go and live it out.
Well, thanks, Colleen. Those were great tips on how to avoid FOMO. And for some of you, that's the fear of missing out. We're going to talk about that on some blogs and vlogs later on our website, so make sure you check it out on seehearlove.com. Well, we have a very special guest with us. A future See Hear Love co-host, Madeline, Christina's daughter, is with us. Hi, Madeline. Oh, I love that. Thanks for joining us and hanging out. It's awesome. Okay, well, we have just a bit of time for our 2 takeaways for the show. And so I've got 2. And so we can have a few minutes just to talk about them. But number 1, the pictures may be pretty, but the struggle is real. Thoughts quickly of that as a takeaway. What is that? How are people going to be encouraged in knowing that truth and takeaway? The pictures are pretty, but the struggle is real.
I got an encouragement.
Okay.
Don't feel bad that you're not posting pictures of like all of the mess, because the reality is when you're in the mess, you're actually attending to your relationships. When you're having a fight with your spouse, when you're dealing with a messy, crazy tantrum on the floor, you're not taking your phone out to take a picture of that, nor should you be, right?
Yeah.
You're capturing, the reason you're putting out beautiful pictures is because that's when you have time and space to do that.
Okay.
So don't beat yourself up about it, but know that when you're looking at those pictures, it is a very small picture of what is actually happening in that life.
Good.
I think I also want to add to that the struggle is also beautiful.
All right, number 2, look to Jesus for truth, the truth about you and the world and the social media landscape. What about that one, Cheryl?
Yeah, I just feel like this is an amazing call to like put down the pressure to have to edit our lives.
Yeah.
And it is time to put on truth because He is the way, the truth, and the life. And by looking to Him, we will see things as they truly are.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic.
I was gonna say, I think we can miss our calling when we are stuck in other people's lives, scrolling, right? We can miss what God has for, like, He said, hey, I have something unique and special for you, but you're stuck in their story, and I'm writing your own. So,
And it's just like a reminder that the final photo finish, so to speak, the real picture, that happens in heaven. You'll never get it perfect on this side.
All right, well, Christina, thank you so much. Madeline, thank you so much for being with us, even just hanging out with us. Christina, thank you. It's this, we're talking about FOMO, but then we have JOMO, the joy of missing out. We loved having you, and thank you for convicting us deeply today on social media, but great thoughts about motivation, authenticity, and truth. Thank you for that. And of course, Cheryl, Brooke, Lisa, thank you for your thoughts as well. Amazing. And to you, our viewers, let's be truth tellers. Bearers and tellers of truth and unity and love and hospitality and generosity to one another, resisting the desire for power and control. Let's not let the images on social media platforms define who we are, but let Jesus be the one who defines who you are and how much you are loved. Don't forget to check out our blogs and vlogs and past shows on seehearlove.com. And always remember that you are seen, you are heard, and you are deeply loved by God. Bye-bye. Deeks Insurance is a proud sponsor of the See Hear Love Studio.